Hello everyone, and welcome to the most freest game dev podcast in the world, House of Games. I'm your co-host Rune, and today I'm joined by my host, Odo, and a very special guest, Kevin, aka Switchhead. Let's just kick the doors open for this episode and see what this week has to offer.
Welcome everyone to this week's episode. So, as mentioned, today we have a very special guest, Switchhead. First of all, for those who don't know, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
I run a YouTube channel called Switchhead, and I run it on my own. I started it a while ago. It took a long time to get going. I live in the UK. I'm 48. And yeah.
And your channel is mostly, from the stuff I've seen, so mostly focused on game reviews and things related to games.
Yeah, mostly it's Nintendo Switch stuff, which I'm going to kind of like do a few other type genres like PC, PS4 and VR soon. I think hardware has held me back from doing other things. Now I'm in a position where I can do a lot more, and I also want to get more into streaming.
Cool. Would you like to tell us more about why you do it and why you enjoy it and how you got started?
I wouldn't say that I'm a normal, your normal average YouTuber in any shape or form. Basically, I started the whole thing off because of my OCD. It kind of helped me relax making these videos and all and putting them out. It wasn't anything to do with, getting subscribers or anything like that. It was more getting my mind somewhere other than where it is at the time and just trying to relax myself. And I think that's why I got into it many, many moons ago. It's had its ups and downs. It's had its stresses and everything. As I said before, the whole streaming, when I was able to do it, I don't know why, that's just such a relaxing, nice little thing. When you got people talking to you and all, it just felt comfortable and everything. And that really sort of like helped with my OCD as well. And it still does these days, but it's that getting my mind off everything else around me and just concentrating on one goal and one thing, if that makes sense.
Did you try something else before YouTube? Like something else to make you relax like that? Or how did you sort of find out about this?
I've tried medication. I'm not really a medication person. I don't like taking tablets. I don't like taking anything really. If I have a migraine or a headache, I don't take anything for it. If I'm ill, if I can help it, I don't take anything for it. I don't like that sort of thing. I've tried, I've had like yoga suggested to me, counselling, and all of it hasn't helped. I can't do yoga to save my life. I had YouTube, like a lot of people, just to watch things and everything. And basically, one day I was watching something and someone made a remark that, anyone can make YouTube content. It's really easy. And I was like, is it though? Is it really easy? And so I tried it. And to a certain extent, it is actually quite easy to do. For me, the only thing that holds someone back is actually just starting to do it. If you go back into my really early videos, all my videos were edited on my iPhone. When I used to use iPhones, it was literally everything was edited on my iPhone. I didn't even have a PC to edit with at the time. So
oh shit.
Yeah, all those crappy videos that I did that people even nowadays come on and whoa, dude, what the hell? All of that people didn't realise was done on my phone. And back then, we're going back God, I can't remember, years upon years. So the technology was only just coming into play for your mobile to be able to edit stuff and do picture in picture. And all of that was just purely done on my phone.
You said you were 48, and I'm curious, did the Nintendo Switch sort of reimburse gaming for you like it did with so many others? Personally, I was sort of not into Nintendo at all for a couple of generations, and then the Switch, it totally turned me on again for Nintendo. I always played games, but I do know there's a lot of people who stopped playing games altogether, and then later on they found the Switch and started gaming again. So I'm curious, is that the case for you, or have you always sort of been playing games?
I think I've always been playing games. I've got a PS4 and I got a PSVR. Back when I was married, I got a daughter, plus work on top of everything. All of those factors meant that obviously I had responsibilities, so I couldn't play as much as I could or wanted to. You know, you have your responsibilities, family and life comes first over gaming. And I used to still get in a good few hours a week. But then Nintendo came out with the Switch, and it just meant that I could basically game wherever I wanted. You know, if my wife was watching something I wasn't interested in, I could sit there quite happily and play a game, which meant that reviewing games also became something a lot easier when that started taking off more, because obviously I had more places I can play games rather than just in one room, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just picked up a Steam Deck over a PlayStation 5, and that's for the exact same reason, because I also have a son, and I don't have time to play games, but I only had my Steam Deck for 2 days now, and it's just... I had the same feeling as when I first picked up a Nintendo Switch. It's just so nice that I don't have to sit in front of the TV or anything like that, or when I go down to Tokyo, I can take it on the train, or it's just, yeah, the freedom there, and I agree, you can sort of put in gaming hours here and there, because those are rare and hard to get by when you have children.
Well, I have my daughter every other week for the full week, and basically, like, obviously we don't just sit there and play games all the time, but playing games on the Nintendo Switch is a lot easier than on the PS4 and everything, and it's a lot more accessible for multiplayer games like, you know, Minecraft and all that lot. It's literally, you just put it in its cradle. A lot of games you can just use two controllers from the same, you know, the left and right controller, just to go straight into gaming.
To go back a little bit, incredibly impressive to be able to produce videos on an iPhone. I've never heard of that, so that's kudos, absolutely.
They're not the best videos, let's put it that way. I was going to say maybe you want to go back and watch them, you might change your mind.
Well, it's something that I usually say about game development is that one of the hardest things is to release the games. So doing the development, I think, is it's doable, but getting to the point of releasing is not as easy, just because you sometimes, for me at least, I tend to be quite perfectionist. So I would say that even though that they aren't perfect, just that they got you started is quite an accomplishment in itself. But I would also say that it reminds me a little bit about how I got started in game development. So currently I'm editing the episode that is gonna come out very soon about how me and Rune got started with game development. And one of the things I talk about in that episode is that the way I got started is that I watched a video by John Romero who made Doom, and when he had one of his talks, he talked about what can you do to get started in the games industry if you don't know how to make games. And he said something to the effect of, the best thing you can do is go home right now and just start making games, because you don't need anyone's permission to make games, and you can just start, and all of the resources are just out there on the internet for free. So that reminds me a little bit about your story.
No, that is absolutely right. The only thing holding most people back is basically themselves. I mean, with the introduction of TikTok, which I've kind of dabbled with at the moment, you literally can just pick your phone up, make some content, and it's out there. The same with YouTube Shorts. They've introduced that, and basically it's the same principle as TikTok, isn't it? You just, you know, make a short video and you put it out there. If you can't edit, I mean, I've seen plenty of people doing reviews from inside their car. When I used to use my phone, that's where I made most of mine. Because I started work so early, sometimes the people that let us into the building weren't there. So I sat down, I just made my videos inside the car.
Cool. So that also brings me to another point I was curious about. So one thing that I think is quite hard for many game developers is marketing, which is what I imagine is something that is more of a central piece to being an influencer or YouTuber or the like. So I was wondering, so you mentioned that you were on TikTok as well. So I'm just curious, what platforms do you usually market your stuff on or post what you do on?
Okay, so obviously I make videos for YouTube, and that's primarily where it all goes. I've recently started doing YouTube Shorts, and they've recently started this bit where basically you can take a 60-second chunk of your video and make it into a short. Now, this is why I've started putting, at the end of my videos, I'll say the score, and then immediately after I'll say in short, so that I can actually chop that bit and that bit to the end of the scoring side out and deliberately put it in there. And then what I can do then, it's kind of difficult on my old computer, but on my new computer, I can then download that and then upload it to TikTok. And it'll be a piece of content that basically has already been made. I've just chopped it down and uploaded it to TikTok. And I can do that with mostly any of my videos that I've got and done. I also upload to Twitter. I don't have many followers on there, but basically anything really helps. I would do it to Facebook, but my YouTube channel to the most is, apart from close family and friends, almost like a thing that I don't tell people that I know, if you know what I mean. It's not really something I post to Facebook. I think that's a self-conscious thing. You know, it's all right, strangers seeing it, and close family, they'll understand. But people that I've known, and, you know, I think it's just a self-conscious thing. I'd probably get more people watching them, but yeah, it's just something I've not, again, pulled the trigger on yet. Discord, sorry. I put it on Discord as well, because I've got a Discord.
No, so you have your own Discord community, yeah.
Yeah, it's not great. I've got 44 people there, but I'd rather have 44 nice, polite, fantastic people like I have, rather than like hundreds of people that just aren't really interested in, just there for, I don't know, free games or just to mess around, if that makes sense. But the people that I have there are just great people.
So something that I think a lot of game developers struggle with is marketing, as I mentioned before. So we talked about in a previous episode about the effect that influencers or YouTubers have on the sales of their games. So that's something that I think a lot of game developers really crave or want. So for you, being on the other side, do you have any contact with game developers or publishers or just indie developers contacting you about wanting you to do a review of their game or anything like that?
Basically, from the start, when you're first starting out, it's almost like no one wants to touch you because you're not established. So unless you have a certain amount of subscribers, no one really wants to know you. That's the harsh reality of it. You have to kind of like go with whoever and whatever you can get, which is why one of my first reviews way back was, I think, a 2 out of 10 or something. It was quite a low rating, because I was just trying to get games from where I could, and also buying games. The only problem with buying games, apart from you paying out of your own money, is the fact that once you've bought a game, you have to then review it. So in order to do that, you go through the whole process, and if that takes like a few days, then already that game has been out 2-3 days. So people have already watched other people's reviews, which means that you're way behind. So then when you put that review out, you hardly get anything back, if that makes sense. It's like slim pickings. It's like you try to get what you can as early as you can. I do have I do know and get on quite well with certain publishers and developers, Rune himself.
That's me.
Oh.
Sorry. Keep at it.
No, it's okay. There are websites that you can go to. Some will ask you to have 1,000 subscribers in order to join them. I'll tell you, when you hit that mark and you're able to join them, it's like, woohoo. Others ask for a bit less. Yeah, there's quite a few websites out there for that. I think I'm part of about 3 or 4 of them. Some are easier, some are harder, but you're not guaranteed a game just because you might have 1,000 followers and all, but I think it still goes back to the publisher's choice. And if they refuse you, they refuse you. So you're not guaranteed a game just because you're on there. I've been refused for quite a few of them. But then I've had surprises on other ones that I thought I wouldn't get, and they've given me. It is a fine line also with getting to know developers and publishers. You're very conscious that you don't want to sway your opinion. If it's a rubbish game, it's a rubbish game. But from my personal experience from actual publishers, I don't think they even watch your reviews, because I've put a game at, I think, 1 or 2, scored really low, and they've allegedly watched it and they just said, "Oh, thank you, great review," and that was it. Same with Twitter. They'll like your video, on Twitter, even though you've given them a bad rating. So I don't even think most of these publishers watch your stuff, even though they say, send me a link to it, and then they'll say, "Oh, that was brilliant, thanks." It was like, really? Okay. I've got a bugbear about Twitter, about publishers, and I don't know why they do this, and some devs do it as well, which is basically, if you put out a video and then you link it into Twitter, they'll like it, but they won't retweet it. Even if it's a good score, even if it's like, "Wow, this game's brilliant, you've done really well," they still don't retweet it. And that to me is just weird. I don't know why most don't. It's strange.
Do you feel influenced by other reviewers when you make your reviews, or do you feel is it easy to stay 100% neutral, or from your opinion when you review games?
To be honest with you, I try not to, if there was a time where I tried to get all my videos out all on time, and I was getting more stressed rather than feeling like a joy to do. So now I kind of reel myself in, and the game that I put out yesterday, that came out Friday, but I hadn't played enough of it, and I just didn't feel I was ready to put the review out. So basically that was late. And there's another game that came out last week or this week, and I'll be putting that out next week because I haven't been able to play it as much as I want as well. But if I'm late on a review, I will deliberately try not to watch anything to do with it to get an influence from someone else that's done a review. I'll try and stay away from anything like that, just so I'm not influenced. I have had games where, I think it was last year, and basically I noticed a lot of people were giving, and it was unavoidable because they were throwing it up everywhere, and they were saying, "Oh, it's a fantastic game" and all. And when I played it, it was not a fantastic game. God knows how these people had given it a good rating, but I think there was me and one other person that gave it a low rating because it just wasn't as good as a lot of people were saying it was. And it was like, why? But yeah, I try not to get influenced in the slightest. Sometimes you can't help seeing someone's rating because, especially on the Nintendo Switch, we're all kind of almost like a close-knit family. Most of us have spoken at least once to each other. Most of us are either in our Discord or we follow each other and all, and sometimes it's unavoidable. But it is a case of I'll play it myself and I'll decide whether it's a good game or not. And yeah, that's basically how I go about it.
Speaking of social media, it's just something that I thought of just now. There is actually possibly a fitting social network that's actually developed in Umeå in northern Sweden called rank1.global. That is also the URL for it, which is sort of a gaming social media focused on influencers and streamers and reviewers and speedrunners and so on. So, and I think they do have some, maybe in a future episode we'll get the privilege to interview them as well. But I think they also have some connections with game companies that you can sort of connect on one side the influencers and on the other side the game producers or game developers. But is that something similar to the websites that you mentioned earlier, that you sign up and it's basically some sort of marketplace where game developers want exposure and game reviewers want games for free to review, basically, if I understood that correctly?
So you get a creator side and you also get a publisher side. So they put their games up, you can request it. Whether you get it or not is entirely up to whether they let you have it. And yeah, it's quite a simple thing. You literally just sign up for it. You have to have a certain amount of subscribers in order to enter a lot of them. Normally the threshold is 1,000. So if you haven't got 1,000 subscribers, and you have to link your channel to them, so obviously that, you know, there's no sort of like, yeah, I've got 5,000 subscribers and just grab free games. So you have to put certain tags in some of them, and they're basically so that website can find your videos. Some others you have to just straight up go and link the review into like a certain part of the website. I mean, it's obvious reason, you know, they don't want people coming along, you know, getting free games and just basically playing them and not doing the hard work behind it. I understand that. Some are better at this than others, you know, handling it. And some are, you know, a little bit fiddly here and there to be able to do it. It's just a little bit of extra work on top of the work that you're doing already. I mean, it literally doesn't stop at just, like, there's a massive process to the whole thing. It doesn't just stop when you've edited the video. Like from start to finish, it's a long haul, like hours upon hours. Well, I suppose days on days if you're playing the game, because sometimes you don't have straight up, like, you know, a good few hours to just sit down and play the game. So sometimes it's broken up into chunks of like a few days of getting home from work, or, you know, finding that time, sitting down, playing for an hour or two, and then making notes, and then going back to doing some other things, and then the next day doing the same, taking more notes. But the process is quite a long one, and it doesn't just stop at editing and then uploading.
I signed up for one of these websites back in the day when Knifeboy first came out in 2019, and I found it quite annoying when I saw some of the reviews or the let's plays or whatever. One guy in particular, he was just totally bashing it from start to finish, and at some point he's like, is this like some sort of Metroidvania game? I fucking hate those games. So then I was kind of curious to ask you now, that when you do through these websites or not through these websites, what does a game has to offer in order for you to actually buy it or review it via a website or through a code? I mean, do you just take whatever at this point, or are you a bit more selective, and what genres would you rather play than others?
Okay, so back in the day, obviously it was whatever I could get, and if it was a bad game, got a bad review. I sometimes mention the fact that if, you know, it might not be my sort of game, this is my score, but sometimes I'll say this might be a bit higher for someone that's actually into this genre. For me personally, nowadays, I pretty well like mostly all genres. I've even got a little bit of a fondness to graphic novels, but they have to be good and they have to be a little bit quirky, you know, do something a bit different. But I'm mainly into like RPG games, shooters, that sort of thing, horrors. But I also, like, if I see a game and I think, oh, that looks interesting, even if it's out of my favourite genres, I will probably ask for it because I'm interested in it. But you do see a lot of games, and the amount of games that I don't ask for outweighs the games that I do ask for by quite significant, mainly because I'm just not interested in them, and I don't want to blatantly go into a genre where I know I'm going to hate that game and then hate on it just for a review. or just for a key. I'd rather stay away from that sort of thing. But as I said, I occasionally will pick up a game that I'm not into. There's been like soccer or football games that I've picked up because I thought, oh, this actually looks like it's done something different. And I'm not into sports hardly at all, but I just wanted to see whether my thoughts about it doing something different was correct.
So I'm also wondering, as you are a reviewer and look at games a lot from the consumer perspective, so would you have any general tips for what should you do in a game to make it stand out and be unique and fun and something that a reviewer and by extension the general public would enjoy? Is there some like common thread where you see mistakes being made, or something that general things you do to make a game great?
First and foremost, I mean, literally my last review didn't do this, or at least it didn't seem like they did it. The biggest thing I would say is if you put a game out, test it. I mean, literally get someone to test it and play through it. And if it's not good, don't put it out. If it's got issues within the actual gameplay itself. The last game I played, I won't say what it is, but it got a very low score because basically it was just a mess at release. I can't honestly say that anyone had played that, because if they had tested that game, they would have seen all those problems. Although there is the other flip side that they did test it, they saw the problems, and they just put it out anyway. And that again is another problem. Don't do that. CD Projekt Red was one of the biggest upcoming, like everyone was talking how fantastic they were until they released Cyberpunk 2077. And they said that was coming out and it was going to work and everything, and it was just a mess. And now look at them, they're, you know, a lot of people have lost faith in them. That would be the first and probably the biggest thing I would say, because if you do have like other issues in the game, then that is just literally going to put people off before you even get into it. I would say do the best you can. The other bugbear I have is voice acting. A lot of devs say, oh, we can't afford voice actors, which is fair enough, but I don't get why. Just do it yourself. I mean, literally, a voice actor would be great, but I'm pretty sure someone that's made the game is going to put passion. I've seen it before where on a couple of games where they've literally, I can't remember what they're called now, and I read that the dev actually did the voices themselves. And I think when they've got passion, it sounds all right, because obviously they want it to sound good. I like something with a bit of difference in it. But as I found out with my YouTube channel, just because someone's doing something different, I don't think a mass audience wants different, which is weird to me. I've seen games that have done something really quirky and all in them, and I thought, wow, that's really good, but they've not sold well because people have said, oh, I'd rather it be like, you know, all the other games in this sort of like genre and all, which is just weird to me. I prefer to experiment, as you could probably see by my reviews.
We talked about the OpenAI some episodes ago, and how I sort of said my point there was that if you let AI do everything for us, I think games will become quite samey. And for example, the Unreal 5 engine, just games that are developed for the Unreal 5 engine and are like showing their trailers and stuff like nowadays, they all look quite samey. But one of my points was also that I think in the end of the day, that's what people just want, sadly. But I'm with you that quirky and weird stuff is more fun, of course. But I do think that, well, sales and all that matters in the end of the day, and if you make something too quirky and weird, it usually doesn't sell as well as the sort of safe and normal stuff.
Yeah, it's a big shame, and it kind of like holds the industry back from progressing. We'll take Grand Theft Auto. If they hadn't have been different and done something, you know, truly unique, then we probably wouldn't have the FPSs and all that we have these days, you know, the open world sandboxes that we have, or at least it would have taken longer to come out. It's these risks that developers take. And obviously, I mean, you know, not let's make it like stupid just to be stupid, but sometimes these like way out there risks that some developers take and people don't appreciate, can define like a genre and change it for the better. But I have noticed that people just don't. I think it's just people in general. They don't like change. They don't like things being, tampered with. This is my genre. Don't tamper with it. But you see that in like films and TV and everything. Whereas some producers and all have like changed it, sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But I think people are just sticklers to what they want, unfortunately. I think that's partly why I like Rune's games, because they are a bit different to more or less everything I'm playing at the moment. They're, they dare to be a little bit different and a bit quirky and everything, and I appreciate that. And yeah, I've spent years upon years trying to make my YouTube different to everyone else's, and basically I have been put back so long because people just don't want it. So as you've noticed through the years, I've tried to keep my own spin on what I want to do and try to be true to me, but also become a little bit more similar to what everyone else is doing. But mainly because if I didn't, literally people just don't watch my content because they don't want, they want a format. They don't want different. So, you just can't innovate properly. It's silly. It's weird to me. I guess my brain works differently. It just doesn't make sense. I'd want something different just for difference sake, so that I can have a breath of fresh air now and again, but it's not what the mass public wants. So
thank you for those kind words, by the way. Very happy to hear that. I was also thinking with your channel, if it's possible to, like you said, sort of make it a little bit more mainstream, but then if you capture an audience, then you can maybe bring them to the weirdness, or not the weirdness, but the different things. So maybe if you can capture some people and then slightly change it to the thing you want it to be. So now you have sort of taken a right turn to the mainstream, and then maybe try to take it back a little bit when you have caught some people with you, and then maybe they will bring people along. But it's difficult. And I do also think you're right. In the end of the day, I think we just want what's safe and normal, sadly.
I'm trying to keep my own twist on things, which I think I'm doing quite well. I've kind of like tried to make as many. I'm analysing my videos at the moment, trying to change here and change there because you'll literally get certain bits which is a cut-off point, like the end of the video. As soon as you mention that the video's over, like and subscribe, basically everyone just switches off. So if you notice it now, at the end of my videos, I will literally just I'll go slowly through the whole video, and then I'll speed run that like and subscribe just to get rid of it, because no one wants it, no one's interested. So I do that. But yeah, I'm trying to like sneak in a bit of quirkiness here and there. And at some point I do intend on going back to a couple of things I used to do that I really enjoyed doing, but I had to take it out because people just weren't watching it. But I think as you said, with if I can just put it in here and there with the audience that I've got now and it's building now, I think I'll probably do all right. I think also because I was trying to do it back then and I had such low key equipment that I was struggling to make content anyway. I think now with my new setup, I might be able to do a lot better and do some more different things, but do it better, if that makes sense. Like back then my hardware was holding me back, but I still had these ideas, but it was difficult to implement them. But now that I have my new setup, when I can get it working properly, hopefully I'll be able to do those things, start putting them in and do them better.
Another thing that I'm curious about, when you have reviews of certain games, I guess maybe not for all, but for some games, do you notice any reaction or effect on how the game performs at Steam, for example, or how much it sells, or is there any direct correlation in your view?
I know for a fact that I've spoken to people, actual, customers, people that have watched my videos, and a few times they have actually said, oh, I was going to get this, but I'm not going to after your review because of the issues within it. So even with my small audience, you could already see, that happening. I've made an impact, and especially if it's a really bad game and they have, not much effort has been put into it. The audience that's watched it has actually made comments saying, oh, I was going to get this, but I'm not going to now. That, I suppose, has made a difference. And then on the flip side of that, you've had times where someone said, oh, I wasn't really interested in this, but I've looked at your review and actually I think it might be a decent game. I'm going to pick it up. I don't really get told sales much. There was a game, I can't remember the actual name. It's been put on the spot, if you know what I mean. Your brain goes blank. But yeah, but basically it came out and it did quite well in sales. And then because everyone was ranting about it, and I said it was a great game as well, and it was. And then basically, apparently to the developer, it just went flat. The sales just died, and it's been sat there for like, I think 2 years or something, and it came up to the 2-year anniversary. And they basically asked if any people that reviewed it in a positive way would do some content for it. So I did a stream on it. I did a 60-second review on it because I'd already reviewed. So I cut that review out and did that for them and helped them. Again, it was a developer they were really nice people. I didn't give them a good score because they were nice people. I gave them a good score because it was a good game. And basically, I'm happy to help people like that out. Do you know what I mean? If I'm able to like say, oh, this is a good game, they're nice people, they've not been an arse to me, yeah, I'll give you a hand. And I basically did everything I could to basically help them out. And then they came back at the end, they thanked me. I think they gave me a code to give away on my channel as well. They were just really nice people, and I appreciate that. But you can get some real nasty developers and producers that they're just not nice, but you do get a lot that are nice. And you can, within a group, if everyone's saying that game's rubbish, then it just basically probably won't sell. I wouldn't have thought, because people do look at reviews and they do take what they've seen, as I've said, to heart, and they'll make the decision not from a picture or a trailer, but from what you've said. The other thing is, when you build these rapport with the developers and producers, and they're such nice people, and they send you a game, because I do have people that literally they'll just say, oh, do you mind reviewing this? And I'll say, yeah, that's fine. And because of the relationship that we've got, and sometimes they'll send one that's just not a good game for one reason or another, and I've had to give it a low score. I still give it a low score, but the guilt that I feel inside me is just, it's horrible. I just feel really bad. I'm like, and I'll go on and I say, I'm just really sorry. It just has so many different problems, or it just wasn't a good game because of this and this. And I feel guilty for it. I really do. I don't know whether I should. I don't know whether other YouTube or reviewers feel guilty for it, but I do. I just feel really bad just giving a low, but I still give them a low rating.
As a hypothesis, say that a small indie developer comes to you with a game that they've made, and the scenario is what you described. It's a bad game and it has lots of issues, and you say, well, I'm gonna have to give it a bad score. So hypothetically, would you then accept if they said, well, can I fix the issues, and then you can replay it and then see if we can make it into a good game? Or is it sort of the first impression is the one that counts?
Right. I've actually had this before in the past on probably a good few times. This only applies when they fix it before it's released. Now, if I message a developer and say, or a publisher and say, look, you've got this issue, which I've done before, and they come back with, oh, right, okay, well, we didn't know about that, but we know about that. We're trying to fix that. We'll have a look at this and we'll try and fix it. We're still a week or two away from release. Just hold off. we'll put a patch out, and then obviously you'll download that and see whether it works. If they do that and it works and it fixes any problems I've had, then yes. Well, 9 out of 10 times I haven't given it a score at that point, because if they say they'll fix it, I won't score it, because I have to write a script and everything. I'll happily change my script if they change the game before it's released. If they do that, then as far as I'm concerned, they've done well by the gamers, by the community, and they've done the right thing. If they say they'll do it and they don't, or they'll say, I'll fix it, but there's no time until after release, I will either say, depending on what, depending on how game breaking this thing is. If it's game breaking, it will just get a rubbish score regardless, because I can only go off what it is at release. So if that game comes out on release and it's broken and someone buys it, then they're not going to have a good experience to start with, and they've paid money for it. So I wouldn't give it a good review. Now then, if it's not a game-breaking thing, I've done in the past where I've given it a score, a low score, and then I've turned around and said, if it gets fixed, I will either score it again in the comments and say it's been fixed, therefore it gets a higher score, and give the score, or in the actual end of the video, I'll give it 2 scores. This is a score as it is now. If it gets patched, and I'll leave a comment in, it's been patched, all good, in the comments. If it gets patched, then this is what the score I think it should get.
Looking forward, what do you think about the future, and what would you like to achieve with your YouTube channel? Like, assuming that everything goes the way you want it to.
Well, I think it's every YouTuber's dream to basically stop their 9 to 5 and just basically do YouTube full time. I think that is the ultimate dream. I know that is literally a dream. I know for a fact that very rarely happens. I mean, literally a small percentage of YouTubers do that. But I'd be happy doing that. It would be a dream for me. But I'm just happy just growing a small community and just keep going the way I am, and hopefully just improving my videos over time, that a wider audience, picks it up and says, oh, that's good, and enjoy it, or enjoy them. It's never been about the money for me. I spent years doing these and I got nothing in return from them. And even now, I mean, it's literally like pennies. So it's, I couldn't live off what I make off YouTube. It's literally just pennies. I think now it is more still about my OCD that taking me away from everything. But I think I've really got into like the community and sort of like interacting with people. That's why I like live streaming, because I love the interactions that you can get with people. And I mean, I invite people in my Discord that if they want to come, and even if, if they've got the game, great, come and join me. I'm happy to play games with people and have them in Discord voice chatting with me. And even if they don't and they just want to come and just sort of like voice chat with me, I'm happy for that as well, just to have like that interaction with someone and just chat away. I've got the community normally next to me, sort of like chatting in chat as well. It's just nice to like just have that communication with such a nice community.
As a means of achieving your goal then, given that you had the number of interested fans, would you be interested in having something like Patreon or some other crowdfunding platform to be able to do more of this as your main thing?
I think I probably would, but I don't think I'd do... Yet again, I don't think I'd do it like most people. I'd probably just have like 1 or 2 low prices. I'm not quite sure. I mean, things might change, but... Yeah, I suppose I would, but mostly all of that would go back into creating content. I mean, the amount of money I've put into this severely outweighs by a lot the money I get out of it. So I think if I did do a Patreon, it would be purely so that I can, maybe not spend my own personal money on making these videos and doing content, and maybe, just be nice to have someone or people helping me out just to pay for some of the stuff that goes into doing these, obviously in return for hopefully great content that they enjoy watching.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I think we're closing in on an hour. Rune, do you have any additional questions you want to ask before we start to close the episode?
I do have one. I'm just curious about. You said you're gonna start streaming. What will be the first game you stream when you start?
I don't know yet. I haven't decided. Because the thing with streaming is basically you'll stream a game, but once that stream is over, the amount of people that will watch your stream afterwards, like no one's going to sit through like an hour or so of someone streaming without being able to interact with the person streaming. I kind of think that's how that all works, isn't it? Because I've spoken to some other people and basically once you've streamed, or from what I've been told, once you've streamed, that is, and you click that end button, you publish it, it's more or less the end of what you're going to get out of that stream. So you will get a couple of people, but they don't sit through like hours of you streaming. They'll just basically cherry pick through it and then that's it. So where you might get 1 or 2 or 10, 20, 30 people watching it afterwards, your main body is when you're actually streaming.
Yeah, I can relate. I mean, I don't watch streams at all, but I would imagine that that's what I would do. If I watched a stream, I would like to see it while it's happening because of the interactions with the streamer. So that you're probably right with that.
The funniest ones I've ever had is when the actual, like I've been playing games and I've done a review for a game and I've gone, oh, I'll stream this game as well. And then the developers jumped into the stream and I've been like, there was one instance about a year ago and it was actually quite funny because he was a nice guy in the end, and he jumped in the stream and I was like going on because I reviewed it. I gave it an okay score. But I started the stream because people wanted to see a bit more. So I started the stream and I was like, these are the problems I was like saying. And then this guy jumped in and he started asking me questions. And I'm like, well, if the developer had done this and this, then I think it would have probably been all right. And sometimes I can't concentrate on names. I'll just literally read the message. And then, do you know what I mean? If it's a fast-paced game, you can't concentrate on everything. So he's like asking me all these questions and I'm like sort of like saying, well, yeah, if the developer had taken time to do this, this and this, then maybe. And then in the end, he was like, yeah, I'm the actual developer of the game. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, luckily enough, he turned out to be a sound guy. I've had completely opposite before, and the guy was like just being a right idiot to me on this other game, and he was like, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know. And it was like, clearly you can see by what I'm playing, it's broken. Or you don't know what it takes to put into developing games. I said, probably more than what I do making my videos. I appreciate that, and I get that developing games is like, it must be the hardest thing that, you know, I can imagine. I see Humble Bundle sometimes have these things, and I look at them, and, you know, game development software and all, and I look at them and I think, oh, I'd love to do that, but it just seems so hard and all. And I appreciate all that. But, you know, if I made one, I would never put something that's broken, or I wouldn't want to put something that's broken out. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why? Why do that?
I was just curious on that topic. So if you were to make a game, assuming that you had the knowledge and the time and money and everything, what kind of game would you make and why?
I would make 2 types of games that I would like to make. I would love to make like a fully fleshed out FPS open world zombie game, but with a story arc running through it. And obviously a decent story arc. If you're going to do it, you might as well do it well. Or my favorite like genres are basically horror, space, and sci-fi, and RPG, fantasy type things like The Witcher and all. And I'd love to make something like The Witcher type thing. That would just be awesome, but obviously not The Witcher.
Cool, very cool.
I also love high fantasy and sci-fi stuff with space, and that would also be my dream to make that type of game. And I'm really into this sort of Soulsborne, Bloodborne stuff, so like a really difficult fantasy game. That would be I would love that, but I'm not there yet. Now I make anime games with boobies.
I like your games. I'm the sort of person that has Funko Pops bought me and they're still in their packaging. And anyone that suggests, oh, you should take them out, it was like, no, you do not do that. They stay in their packaging. Even though I fully know that they're never going to be worth anything, but you just can't take them. That's the sort of person I am. I go into that sort of thing. I think I'd like to be the Henry Cavill of gaming. That's what I'd like to be.
That's a good goal, I think.
Like back when he started becoming famous, I didn't actually like him, but the more I've seen of him and the more I've seen what sort of person he is, the more and more he's grown on me. And I think he's a fantastic actor, and I think it's great that you can get actors, and now you get more of them coming out saying, oh, we're gamers and everything, and staying true to what they believe in, and they know what they're talking about. They're like us. It's if we became actors, we would know what the hell we're talking about, which is why The Witcher was so good, and why he's doing this 40,000 universe and everything, and why people are after him for that now rather than just to be the face of whatever they're doing. And I think that's fantastic. It's like The Last of Us that's just come out. It's starting to now prove that if you stick to source material because it's so good and don't try to change it because you want to put your own mark on it, then you can produce some fantastic stuff. The source material's already there. You don't need to mess with it. Fans already love it for a reason, because it's good. Don't mess with it, and you'll get what. I don't know if you've seen The Last of Us series, but it's absolutely fantastic.
We're gonna start watching it maybe next week, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh man, you'll enjoy it. Did you ever play the game?
Yeah, absolutely love the first one, but I'm one of those guys who didn't appreciate the second one, but mainly because I thought it was too long. And I really wish I had known before going in that it was such a long game, because I was just sort of feeling a bit stressed halfway through when I thought the game was over. I was very happy about it, but then the game just kept on going and going and going, and every time I sat down to play it, I was just sort of stressing through it, and I totally ruined the game for myself. So that's like one of those times that I wish I had spoiled myself going into it, knowing that it was a long game. But I went on this sort of media blackout before it came out, so I knew nothing about the game, and that was a shame, because I think the game would have been much better if I had known it was that long, because then I wouldn't have played it when I did. I would probably had made sure that I had time to play it, so I sort of ruined it for myself. But the first game I loved a lot. Like, I really loved it.
Yeah, the first game I played several times. I played the DLC, and yeah, I love it. And I've not played the second one because so many people have said it spoiled their experience for them, so I've kept away from it. And I haven't played it for that reason. I don't know whether I'm missing out or anything, but I just don't want that whole love affair that I have with that game in general to disappear because, for any reason whatsoever. I just have such fond memories of it. I don't want that to go away.
Yeah, I think if I could go back in time, I would not have played the second game either, because I also was so in love with the game and the characters from playing the first game.
The TV series literally has shot by shots of certain bits of it. It is done so well. Like, literally, you'll be sitting down, it's almost like watching deja vu. You'll be watching these bits and you'll be like, whoa, that's actually, having these flashbacks of playing the game. It's really impressive.
I think I'm gonna start closing the episode. So anything else that either of you want to talk about before I do that?
Maybe you should tell us where we can find you, Switchhead, before we wrap this up.
If you type in Switchheads on YouTube, I should pop up somewhere. I'm also on Twitter, and yeah, you can jump into Discord yet again, Switchheads. Although if you look at most of my videos, I have the Discord link in the description. Yeah, pretty well everywhere.
Perfect. And is there any other way that the listeners can support you and your work?
At this time, I think just watching my videos and, liking and subscribing. Oh, that sounds so corny.
Well, it has to be done, I suppose.
Yeah, I went through a bit of not putting like and subscribe at the beginning, end, and middle of my videos. I thought listeners didn't need reminding about that. If, like for me, if I enjoy some content, I don't need to be told to like and subscribe. I'll just do it automatically if I like a channel. But interesting research that I did myself by not doing that for about a month or two, my subscribers went down, and then coming off the back of that, when I started putting it back in, my subscribers went up. So I found that really interesting, the fact that my thoughts were, nah, I don't need to do that. The listeners don't need to be told to subscribe to the channel, and all this lot. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and just cut all that out of my videos because, I don't think it needs to be there. And apparently you do. You do need it there. Weird. I will say that you're doing fantastic work on games. Like, developing games must be one of the hardest things ever. And I have a lot of respect for you for doing these games. As I know, making my YouTube videos, as much as sometimes they're stressful and, hard to get right and everything, developing a game that people can actually play and enjoy must be like a world away from what I experience. So I have a lot of respect for developers and what they do. And I just think, when it comes together and it's right, it's fantastic. When it doesn't and they're willing to change and do something good to their game, where they accept the fact that there's something not right about it, that is, to be respected as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, hopefully our future games will be able to live up to the hype.
Well, I'm expecting a RPG Grand Theft Auto Witcher.
Yeah, exactly. That's the minimum, the low bar for any game.
Preferably that goes into space after a while as well. That would just tick all the boxes for me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And custom-made planets and everything.
Yeah. If you can do that this year, that would be awesome. I'd play it.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Oh, yeah.
I was just wondering also if there are game developers that listen to this podcast that want to get in touch with you to either get you to review their games, or if they would want you to interview them or do a live stream with them, where should they contact you at, or how did they reach out?
My email address for Switchheads is switchheads@gmail.com. But if they also go to my channel, all that information's up there as well. You should have my email address and everything. And obviously, if you're on Twitter and you just search Switchheads, you can come speak to me there. I think I've got the thingy open. If anyone wants to send me a message, they can.
Perfect. And we will make sure to link all of that in this podcast description so that nobody misses it. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I am gonna like and subscribe actually, and I do look forward to your future work. And thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.